Hi, my name is Alana McLaughlin, and I am a naturopathic doctor currently practicing in El Paso, Texas. And today's talk, I want to discuss a little bit about some of the foundations that I feel are very important for maintaining good health and reaching our health goals. So, the ones that I focus on, I like to talk a lot about fresh air and what that means, water, sleep, good nutrition, and then foundation is also movement. So I'm going to go into those and break those down bit by bit. You can also find this information on my website in written form at guidedtrailsnaturalhealth.com, or if you Google or search for Dr. Alana McLaughlin, it will come up as well. So let's start with air is the first one I mentioned. And this one is maybe the one we have the least amount of control over, especially outside of our home environment. However, within our home and within our car or wherever we spend a lot of time, we do have some influence. The biggest component of this that I like to mention is just making sure that you have a good ventilation system. If you have air conditioning, heating system, getting those cleaned regularly by professionals, making sure there isn't a lot of buildup in there, can significantly improve your air quality. Air purifiers can also be an option if needed, depending on your level of respiratory health. This one, I like to mostly focus on what we can control for our air quality, and that is eliminating as many of those outside toxin components as possible. So those can be things such as candles, air fresheners, all those outside pollutants that we're adding in and bringing in on our own. It also includes the chemicals that we're using around our home to clean. So I like to sub out different options. So we all like to have our house smelling good. So instead of using candles, I sub that out with a diffuser. And in that diffuser, you can use different types of essential oils. Some great ones, there are some antimicrobial ones out there that are usually like a cinnamon blend. There are some great ones that are peppermint based, and then just using essential oils by themselves. Orange can be a nice one. Some of the citrus ones can be refreshing and leave your house smelling good without having all those extra chemicals that we would find in a candle. I also mentioned in there cleaning products, using things like vinegar with essential oils instead of going to the store and buying whatever you may generally be associated with using for cleaning products can be a great way to minimize or reduce the amount of toxins we're adding into our home and therefore into our bodies, because we are breathing it. If you can smell it, your body is taking it in, and then you have to take care of it. The next one I'm going to talk about is sleep. And this one is probably one of the most important, but can be one of the most frustrating and challenging to make changes to. And I say this because we've all been to the spot where you're laying in bed and you're extremely exhausted, but you cannot go to sleep for whatever reason. However, it is important to try different means of setting up your sleep environment to be as conducive or as supported for sleep as possible. Dark room, cool, no noises, no outside lights, technology is off, ideally no TV, things like that. Set up a space where it is kind of your body's place to be able to rest and be able to go to sleep. With all kinds of different sleep problems, though, there are tons of different ways of approaching a sleep problem, so I'm not going to go into that here, but just making sure you're allocating that time and prioritizing sleep and making sure you're getting enough is, a great place to start. For most of us, that means at least 7 hours of sleep at night. So that's allocating 7 hours every night between laying down and getting up to where that is your sleep time. Nothing else can get put into that place. Scheduling it in to make it priority. Third, I want to talk about water. And I include water in this section because nowadays we have so many outside chemicals put into our water source. Even if you're lucky enough to have spring water or well water that you're working off of, that is a lot more ideal in most situations because you're not having the chemicals added in, and that water naturally has minerals in it that should be in our water. If we aren't that lucky and we're using or having to rely on municipal water or city water, I definitely recommend either getting a water filter, a good quality water filter. So I've actually made a spreadsheet of different options available for that I've given out to different clients. And the other one, or one of them, can be using one on your faucet or getting one of the programs where they deliver the water that is guaranteed to be filter free and having a stand-up water cooler that you use. There's so many different forms out there that are available that can be really beneficial. One other one besides a stand-up that I had great research on and found really great research on is the Berkey water system. And then you just use the water you already have, but it's a separate filtration system. Also with water, it's not just the water we're drinking. I also like to include our showers, especially for people having dry skin, hair falling out, just not feeling like you are, able to process that. I like to have a shower filter on there to minimize, the chlorine and fluoride that's coming in that may be competing, so in a case like thyroid, competing for the iodine on our thyroid, which could be impacting our health. So the fourth component in optimizing or just starting with the basic foundation of what we need for health, I will talk about food. And just briefly, and some of the components I look for when I am shopping for food, because then I go into more detail on the nutrition section. So when I'm looking at food, as much as possible, I like to go with organic produce. Again, we're just trying to decrease the amount of toxins our body is exposed to, and that is really, really important for easing. If we're having any sorts of signs or symptoms of having something going on in our body, we're trying to reduce our total toxic load. And that's what these components, this base health, is all about. So with food, in addition to organic, nowadays we're looking and seeing the benefits of having, they're calling non-GMO produce, so non-genetically modified organisms, I believe is what the O is. And so we're looking at food that is as natural as possible, coming from a seed that hasn't been modified in too many ways, which more and more of our food chain and sourcing is coming from GMO sourcing. So that's another tag I kind of look for. And the most important one is just whole food, though. If we have to choose any of those, if I have to trade organic for something packaged, I'm going to go with something that's a whole food instead of something that's packaged. So a whole apple, a whole fruit of other variety, oranges, bananas, berries, versus fruit snacks or something like that is processed, added sugar to, and then we're eating it. So sticking to as much of something that we can identify on our plate as possible. And I also do this with my family. I have some plates, if you're curious to see. I have some pictures of different meal plans I've taken of mine and my kids, and I just feel it's really, really important to try to switch your lifestyle over to whole foods as much as possible, and that is financially feasible. So one resource on that is the Environmental Working Group. It's ewg.org, and they have the Dirty Dozen of the top 12 foods that you should really try to buy organic, because they always come back testing every year highest in different toxicities, pesticides and herbicides, chemicals on those types of foods. And then there's the Clean 15, so things like bananas and melon and bananas that we are going to be taking off a peel or an outer covering and get rid of a lot of the toxins just by the nature. So those ones, if you are on a budget, that they aren't as essential to get organic. All right, finally, in this brief introduction of these foundations of health, the last one is movement. And I saved movement for last because it's one that can be the hardest to incorporate and change depending on your lifestyle. If you're working to where you're sitting all day, every day, it is essential to get up and move every hour to do something that gets your muscles moving, gets your digestive system moving, because that can be such a big component of what's going on when we're having other, especially digestive concerns, but neurological and muscle weaknesses, changes as well. Just by adding in the movement, increases our circulation and gets the nutrients into those areas and gets the toxins moving out. So movement is one, really important to prioritize, trying to get that in and fitting in every day, some sort of movement, not only for you, but your families, your friends. It's a huge component of so many of our diseases now is our change in lifestyle. But it is possible to add more in, to prioritize, as I mentioned with sleep, scheduling it in. Make sure you pencil in movement time if that's what you need to do. Get down and play with your kids more often. Go for a walk with your significant others, things like that. Instead of just sitting and eating for a gathering, go out and do something active. So there's tons of ways to get movement incorporated in. But it can be challenging. So you just have to find what you enjoy, and that is the best form of movement. It is what you enjoy and you look forward to every day. So just to recap, so looking at just 5 basic things that we can look at that are a huge foundation of our health and how healthy we are. Looking at air, sleep, water, food or nutrition, and movement. So this is just a very brief introduction. If you have questions on any one of those, or there's an area where you really think you need more support, I would love to hear from you. And again, Guided Trails Natural Health, you can find my contact information, phone number and whatnot. And I hope this was helpful. Thank you.